Captain Elena Reyes accessed the secure facility beneath the Mariner Valley military complex on Mars, a place that officially didn't exist in any public record. Here, the walls contained a metal alloy specifically designed to block quantum surveillance, technology developed not for privacy from Earth governments, but from potential observers beyond the stars. Captain Reyes greeted General Hammond, his weathered face illuminated by holographic star charts. "I understand you've brought compelling evidence." The room contained 12 individuals. The Sentinel Council, a classified group formed 80 years ago, when the first hint of non-terrestrial signals had been detected. Their existence remained one of humanity's best-kept secrets. The cerulean transmissions matched 3 of the 7 first contact threat profiles. Elena explained, displaying comparative analyses on the central projector. Their communication patterns showed distinctive predatory markers, particularly in subspace frequency allocations that suggest weapons targeting systems disguised as routine telemetry. Dr. Yamato, the Council's xenolinguistics expert, leaned forward. "You're certain your translation matrices are accurate? There's no possibility of cultural misinterpretation." Elena played another recording, this one a visual transmission intercepted between Commander Xalthrax and another cerulean officer. The alien's bony facial ridges flexed as it spoke, mandibles clicking in what the translation software identified as amusement. The Sol system inhabitants show promising neurological complexity, the translation overlay read. Their neural tissue will command premium prices in the biomatter markets of the inner spiral. The council members exchanged grim glances. Threat Profile 4, resource harvesting, had just been confirmed. "How long until their diplomatic vessel reaches Earth orbit?" Hammond asked. 72 hours, Elena replied. "They're moving slowly, conducting extensive scans of our outer system defenses." "Which they won't find," noted Admiral Chen, "because everything of significance is quantum shielded or powered down." Elena nodded. "They believe they're dealing with a typical pre-FTL civilization, one that would detect conventional propulsion signatures, but miss their advanced scanning technology. They don't realize we've been intercepting and analyzing their transmissions since they entered the Oort cloud." General Hammond activated a secure holographic display showing Sol system defenses. Red indicators marked Earth orbital platforms, lunar defense batteries, and the Martian shipyards, all conventional military emplacements that the Ceruleans would expect. But blue markers, hidden throughout the asteroid belt, nestled in Jupiter's Trojan points, and concealed in Saturn's rings, represented the classified defense grid that no public record acknowledged. "Protocol Thunderclap requires unanimous council approval," Hammond reminded the room. "We would be revealing capabilities we've kept hidden for decades." Elena stepped forward. "With respect, General, if we wait until they reach Earth orbit, we lose tactical advantage. Their scans will eventually detect our hidden assets. The protocol was designed precisely for this scenario, to demonstrate overwhelming force before physical engagement becomes necessary." Dr. Samara, the Council's historical strategist, spoke softly. Throughout human history, when technologically superior forces encountered less advanced civilizations with conquest in mind, the outcomes were universally tragic for the less advanced group. We cannot allow Earth to become another such example. The vote, when it came, was unanimous. Protocol Thunderclap was authorized. As Elena departed for her ship, Dr. Yamato caught up with her in the corridor. "Captain, there's something else you should know." The linguistic analysis found another pattern. The Ceruleans refer repeatedly to something called the Awakening. "They seem afraid it might happen here." "Afraid?" Elena asked. "What does that mean?" "We don't know," Yamato admitted, "but they're scanning for something specific on Earth. Something they desperately hope not to find." The 6-hour deadline ticked away in tense silence. On the bridge of the Thunderchild, Lieutenant Commander Diaz monitored the Cerulean vessel through quantum-enhanced sensors that revealed details the aliens believed were shielded. "They're attempting to reconnect their surveillance grid," Diaz reported, "and they've activated an emergency transmitter. something powerful enough to reach their nearest outpost. Reyes nodded. Let them call home. I want their superiors to see exactly what happened. The transmission's contents, intercepted and decoded by Earth's quantum AI, revealed more than the Ceruleans intended. Commander Xalthrax wasn't merely reporting the encounter. He was requesting information on something called Designation Lazarus. What's Designation Lazarus? Asked Dias. Dr. Kapoor, connected via secure channel from Earth, provided the answer. It appears to be related to that awakening reference we intercepted earlier. Their emergency protocols suggest this is a high-priority designation, possibly a contingency plan if they encounter specific resistance patterns. On the main view screen, the Cerulean vessel began powering up its engines. Its elegant crystalline design belied its predatory purpose, like a beautiful venomous creature pretending to be harmless. They're leaving as instructed, reported Tactical Officer Lieutenant Okonkwo. But they're deploying something. Microscopic devices, thousands of them. Nanoprobes, Reyes realized. Standard reconnaissance tactic mentioned in their playbook. They're leaving behind eyes and ears. She turned to Communications Officer Chen. Prep countermeasure Daedalus. Chen's fingers danced across the adaptive interface. Daedalus ready, Captain. Execute. Throughout Earth's orbit, concealed satellites simultaneously released electromagnetic pulses calibrated to the precise frequency that would disable Cerulean nanotechnology without affecting human systems. The nanoprobes winked out of existence, reduced to inert particles. But the Thunderchild had one final message to deliver. As the Cerulean vessel reached the lunar orbit, Reyes ordered a single projectile launched. Not a weapon, but a data package encased in a crystalline matrix that matched Cerulean technology. What did you just send them? Dias asked. A history lesson, Reyes replied. Specifically, humanity's military history. Every major conflict, every strategy and counter-strategy we've developed over thousands of years. And one additional file. The complete records of extinct species we've discovered in our archaeological digs. You want them to think those extinctions were our doing, Dias realized. That we wiped out our competitors. Let them draw their own conclusions, Reyes said with a grim smile. Perception is its own weapon. The Cerulean vessel accelerated away from Earth, its trajectory suggesting it was preparing for FTL jump once it cleared the solar system's gravity well. Meanwhile, underneath Antarctica's ice sheet, Dr. Zhang's team made a breakthrough in the ancient crash site. The artifact they'd been studying for decades, believed to be wreckage from a previous Cerulean visitation thousands of years ago, had begun responding to their scans in ways it never had before. It's activating, Dr. Zhang reported over the secure channel. Something about the Cerulean vessel's presence triggered it. We're getting data streams. Massive amounts of technical information. Reyes felt a chill that had nothing to do with the environmental systems. Does it match what we know about their technology? That's just it, John replied, her voice trembling with excitement or fear. Perhaps both. This isn't Cerulean technology. It's something else entirely. And according to the translation matrix, it's calling itself the Guardian. As the Cerulean ship vanished into FTL, Admiral Zevarian received the preliminary report with growing unease. These humans weren't just unexpectedly advanced. They possessed knowledge they shouldn't have. Something was very wrong about this planet. Perhaps the ancient warnings about Sol system weren't superstition after all. The Eternal Empress's private chambers dwarfed the throne room in both size and splendor. Here, away from the performative displays of power meant to cow ambassadors and subjects, Tix Era consulted with her most trusted advisors, the Mnemonic Council, 7 beings nearly as ancient as herself. The humans sent this directly to our vessel, she said, projecting the data package Captain Reyes had transmitted. A comprehensive record of their conflicts. Counselor Vexed, his body more machine than organic after millennia of modifications, analyzed the streaming data. Fascinating. They'd been killing each other almost continuously throughout their recorded history. Such efficient brutality in pursuit of resources, ideology, territory. And yet they've never annihilated themselves, noted Counselor Myra, the only fully biological member besides the Empress herself. They've mastered the art of fighting just short of extinction. The Empress manipulated the holographic display, focusing on Earth's most recent conflicts. Notice their pattern of warfare evolution. Most species develop weapons of increasing destructive capacity in linear progression. Humans developed planet-killing nuclear weapons, then deliberately created limitations on their use, while simultaneously perfecting precision targeting systems. They prefer surgical strikes over mass destruction, Vexit observed. Unusual. Most species follow our pattern, maximum force to ensure compliance. Because most species fight to end conflicts, the Empress replied. These humans, they've been preparing for perpetual war. Their entire infrastructure is designed for sustained conflict. She turned to her military overseer, Kovacs. Your assessment. Kovacs's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep concern among his kind. The standard conquest fleet would suffer approximately 30% casualties against their current defenses, acceptable losses for a resource-rich system. That's assuming their displayed capabilities represent their actual strength, countered Myra. The historical records they deliberately provided suggest a species that excels at deception and misdirection. The Empress activated another display. The archaeological data recovered from previous imperial surveys of Earth. 12,000 years ago, our exploratory vessels cataloged this system. The humans were primitive then, barely forming agricultural settlements. We placed standard observation devices and departed. Those devices went silent within a century, reminded Vexit. Yes, the Empress said softly. We assumed environmental factors or technical failure. Perhaps that assumption was incorrect. The room fell silent as the implications settled among the council. If prehistoric humans had somehow detected and disabled Imperial technology. Kovacs broke the silence. There's another possibility. The ancient survey noted unusual radiation signatures in their star system, consistent with the theoretical patterns of a Guardian enclave. The word hung in the air like a curse. The Guardians, a semi-mythical precursor species that had supposedly opposed imperial expansion in its earliest phase before disappearing completely from the galaxy. Guardians are a bedtime story used to frighten imperial children, scoffed Counselor Draz. There is no evidence they ever existed. There is no evidence they didn't, countered the Empress. She turned to her personal archon, a being of pure data housed in a crystalline matrix. Cross-reference all historical records of Guardian sightings with the Sol system coordinates. The archon hummed softly, processing. No direct correlation found. However, 27 systems within 200 light-years of Sol show anomalous developmental patterns similar to Earth's. Unusually rapid technological advancement followed by unexplained periods of stagnation. The Empress's luminescent veins pulsed with sudden intensity. Prepare the conquest fleet as planned, but add the Worldbreaker to the Armada. The council stirred in surprise. Eternal One, ventured Kovacs carefully. The Worldbreaker has not been deployed in 800 years. Its use against a single system species would violate proportionality protocols. This is no longer about conquest, the Empress replied, her voice cold. This is about verification and, if necessary, eradication. If there is even a possibility that Sol harbors Guardian influence, we must be prepared for total sterilization. As the council departed to enact her will, Tix Era remained alone, studying the human historical documents. Something about their conflict patterns disturbed her ancient instincts. Most conquered species fought for survival. These humans fought like they were conducting experiments. Testing strategies, refining techniques, preparing for what? What are you waiting for? She whispered to the rotating image of Earth. What enemy have you been preparing to face for all these millennia? The Guardian artifact beneath Antarctica pulsed with increasing energy as Dr. Zhang's team worked feverishly to decode its vast data streams. The chamber, carved deep into the ancient ice, hummed with machinery interfacing with technology that defied conventional understanding. "It's not just a database," Dr. Zhang announced to the secure conference, her holographic form appearing before military and scientific leaders worldwide. "It's alive, in some sense. Sentient technology that's been dormant for millennia." Admiral Reyes, connected from the Thunderchild, leaned forward, alive enough to be an ally. "It's responding to specific questions," Zhang confirmed, "and it's volunteering critical information about cerulean weak points. Their ship's reactor configurations, shield harmonics, even their FTL vulnerability windows." General Hammond frowned. "Why now? If this Guardian has been here all along, why wake up just when we need it?" "It claims it was programmed to activate only when certain conditions were met," Zhang explained. "First, humanity needed to reach a specific technological threshold. Second, the Cerulean Empire needed to discover Earth. It's been waiting for this specific confrontation." The revelation sent ripples of unease through the conference. The idea that some ancient entity had anticipated this conflict millennia ago suggested a level of planning beyond human comprehension. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt, Major Liang Wei supervised the final arming sequence for the quantum-entangled mines. Unlike conventional explosives, these weapons existed simultaneously in multiple states until observation collapsed their quantum function. The result: when one detonated, all would detonate, regardless of distance. "Schrödinger would be proud," muttered Lieutenant Karim beside him, or horrified. Wei smiled grimly. "Both, probably. But it's the unpredictability that matters. The Empire expects us to behave like previous species they conquered, using defensive positions with predictable deployment patterns. Instead, we're turning physics itself into a weapon," Karim replied, finishing the sequence. "Mines armed and entangled, Major. The trigger system is now quantum-locked to Admiral Rice's command codes." On Mars, the hastily expanded shipyards revealed their true purpose. What had appeared to be conventional vessel construction bays transformed as hidden sections detached, revealing the actual defensive fleet. Each ship incorporated elements of cerulean technology, reverse-engineered from the Antarctic artifact, combined with uniquely human design principles. Commander Alejandra Cortez, assigned to captain the newly commissioned UES Defiance, walked through her vessel's central corridor, noting how seamlessly human and Guardian technology had been integrated. "The Guardian provided the concepts, but the execution is all ours," explained Chief Engineer Nakamura. "They understand the Cerulean's technology, but we understand how to adapt it, particularly the shield harmonics. We've reconfigured them to operate on phase-shifted frequencies the Empire hasn't encountered before." "Will it be enough?" Cortez asked quietly. "It has to be," Nakamura replied. "The Guardian's tactical simulations give us a 61% chance of success, better odds than anyone else who's faced the Empire." At a remote facility in the Gobi Desert, Dr. Kapoor made a breakthrough that altered humanity's entire defensive strategy. After analyzing communications patterns from a dozen conquered worlds, he identified a critical weakness in Imperial military doctrine. They rely entirely on hierarchical command structures, he explained to Admiral Reyes over secured channels. No initiative permitted at lower levels. Every tactical change must be approved by a superior. The result is devastating efficiency when facing predictable opposition, but serious vulnerability to adaptive opponents who can force them to constantly seek new authorizations. "How long between an unexpected situation arising and new orders being issued?" Reyes asked. "Approximately 4.3 minutes, Kapoor replied. "That's our window minus 4.3 minutes where their ships will follow their last orders, even if those orders have become suicidal." Reyes nodded. "Then we'll design our entire defense around creating those windows. Continuous tactical shifts every 4 minutes, forcing their command structure to constantly recalibrate." When the quantum detection grid registered the Imperial fleet's FTL entry point at the system's edge, precisely where the Guardian had predicted. Admiral Reyes felt an odd mix of dread and vindication. Humanity had prepared as thoroughly as possible, guided by an ancient ally with its own mysterious agenda. "Battle stations," she ordered calmly. "Let's show the Empire why they should have left us alone." The void between Jupiter and Saturn became the true battlefield as Operation Hornet's Nest entered its second phase. The microdrones had accomplished their initial objective, but Admiral Zevarian was adapting faster than anticipated. "They're deploying counter-swarms," reported Lieutenant Commander Dias from Tactical. "Automated defense platforms ejecting from their capital ships." On the Thunderchild's combat display, clouds of Imperial counter-drones appeared as red hazes surrounding the larger vessel's signatures. The microdrones, represented by blue pixels, began winking out by the hundreds. "Execute fractal pattern Delta," ordered Admiral Reyes. Across the fleet, human vessels implemented the pre-planned maneuver, a complex, seemingly random dispersal that resembled no known military formation. The Imperial fleet's response came exactly 4.2 minutes later, their ships adjusting to create a standard envelopment pattern. Kapoor was right about their response time, Reyes noted. "Communications, broadcast Phase 2 authorization." Throughout the Jovian system, concealed platforms activated simultaneously. Not weapons, but jammers, devices designed to create localized disruptions in subspace communications. The effect wasn't to cut off Imperial ships entirely, but to degrade transmission quality just enough to introduce microsecond delays. On the Imperial flagship, Zevarian noticed the communications degradation immediately. "Adaptive countermeasures," he ordered. "Switch to secondary protocols." But the secondary protocols were precisely what humanity had anticipated. The Guardian's data had included complete Imperial communication frameworks, allowing Earth's quantum computers to predict exactly which backup systems would activate. As Imperial ships switched frequencies, they found those bands pre-jammed as well, forcing them to cycle through tertiary options. Each switch introduced further delays in the command chain. "Their response time has increased to 6.8 minutes, reported Communications Officer Chen with satisfaction. Reyes nodded. "Tactical, identify vessels showing command hesitation." The combat display highlighted 3 Imperial cruisers whose movements had become noticeably erratic as conflicting or delayed orders reached their captains. "Execute precision strike, targeted vessels only," Reyes ordered. "Deploy Sunresors." From the UES Defiance and 2 companion vessels, a new weapon deployed. Missiles with crystalline hulls that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible to conventional sensors. Powered by miniaturized fusion drives reverse-engineered from Guardian technology, they accelerated to speeds that made interception almost impossible. The targeted Imperial cruisers detected the incoming threats too late. The Sunresors didn't target the vessel's hulls or critical systems. Instead, they struck with surgical precision at external command relays and primary sensor arrays. "Brilliant targeting," breathed Commander Jackson, watching the results. "They're not destroyed, but they're command blind," Reyes finished. Unable to receive orders or transmit accurate battlefield data, she turned to communications. "Chen, prepare the transmission." As the 3 damaged Imperial cruisers drifted out of formation, their escort vessels hovering in confusion, a message broke through on Imperial command frequencies. "Imperial Fleet, this is Admiral Alina Reyes of Earth Defense Forces." Her voice rang across every Imperial vessel. "We have demonstrated our ability to selectively disable your ships. We have chosen not to destroy them. Understand this distinction. It is not mercy. It is calculation. We fight differently than those you've conquered before." In the heart of the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Zevarian felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries of military service: genuine uncertainty. These humans were following no recognizable doctrine of war. Their tactics shifted constantly, adapting not just to Imperial responses, but anticipating them. Most disturbing was their restraint. The damaged cruisers could have been destroyed, Yet the humans had deliberately preserved them while rendering them combat ineffective. This wasn't the desperate resistance of a species fighting extinction. It was the measured response of a predator establishing dominance. Deep within the Antarctic facility, the Guardian artifact pulsed with increasing intensity as it monitored the battle. Dr. Zhang noticed a new data stream appearing on her interfaces, not tactical information this time, but something far more concerning. "Admiral," she communicated directly to Reyes, "the Guardian is showing energy readings from the Imperial flagship that match no known cerulean technology. They'd brought something else with them. Something the Guardian identifies as a world killer." The quantum space between light years rippled as the Second Imperial Armada tore through the fabric of reality. This was no ordinary reinforcement fleet. This was the Empress's Fist, vessels reserved for threats to the Empire itself. As they emerged into normal space at the edge of the Sol system, their configuration revealed a terrifying truth. They had abandoned standard conquest protocols entirely. "Scanning new contacts," reported Lieutenant Okonkwo, her voice tight. "Configuration doesn't match any known Imperial battle formation." The tactical display updated, showing the new arrivals. 7 massive dreadnoughts surrounded by corvette screens, their formation suggesting not conquest but extermination. "They're deploying orbital platforms," Okonkwo continued. "Not assault craft. These are atmospheric penetration devices." Admiral Reyes studied the readings, her expression hardening. "World killers. Bombardment platforms designed to crack a planet's crust." She opened a channel to Earth Command. "General Hammond, initiate contingency exodus immediately." Throughout the Earth-Mars system, pre-positioned civilian evacuation ships began powering up. The secret protocol, developed in case of total military failure, would ensure at least a fraction of humanity survived to rebuild elsewhere. The Worldbreaker, centerpiece of the Second Armada, activated its primary weapons array. The massive ship, nearly twice the size of any other Imperial vessel, began generating energy readings that defied conventional physics. "The Guardian is sending new data," Dr. Zhang reported urgently. "The Worldbreaker doesn't use conventional weaponry. It creates gravitational singularities capable of collapsing a planet's mantle." On the bridge of the Thunderchild, Commander Jackson voiced what everyone was thinking. "Why this level of response? We bloodied their nose, but this reaction is disproportionate." Admiral Rice's eyes narrowed. "They're afraid. Not of our military capability, of what we represent." She turned to her communications officer. "Contact Lunar Base Serenity. Activate Project Lazarus." Throughout the asteroid belt, hidden installations activated automated factories that began producing a new generation of FTL missiles, not designed to target ships, but to strike the Empire's homeworld through pinpoint hyperspace jumps. The message was clear. If Earth burned, so would Cerulean Prime. Meanwhile, beneath the Antarctic ice, Dr. Zhang made a discovery that changed everything. As the Guardian continued translating its ancient database, a pattern emerged in its references to human DNA. "Admiral," she reported, her voice trembling, "the Guardian isn't just helping us. It's activating something within us. The awakening the cerulean sphere. It's genetic. The Guardian claims it seeded Earth with modified DNA millions of years ago, waiting for the right evolutionary branch to develop intelligence." "Are you saying we're weapons?" Rise asked, incredulous. "Not weapons," Zhang corrected. "Successors. The Guardians were dying out when they encountered the early Empire. They couldn't fight directly, so they created us. A species with the genetic potential to develop technologies the Empire couldn't predict or counter." The revelation stunned the command staff. Humanity hadn't just been preparing for this confrontation unconsciously. They had been designed for it on a genetic level, their scientific curiosity and warlike tendencies deliberately engineered. On the Worldbreaker, the Empress's holographic projection appeared before Admiral Zevarian. "The genetic markers are confirmed," she stated without preamble. These humans carry Guardian genetic modifications. They are weapons, not a species, abominations created to destroy us. Xiverian bowed. The sterilization protocols will commence within the hour, Eternal One. No, the Empress countermanded, her ancient eyes gleaming with unexpected intensity. I am taking personal command. Prepare my shuttle. I will oversee this operation directly. In the vacuum between Mars and Jupiter, the human and Imperial fleets maneuvered for what both sides now recognized as an existential confrontation. This was no longer about conquest or resistance. It was about survival. The Empress was coming to ensure humanity's extinction personally, while deep in the Antarctic ice, the Guardian artifact began its final activation sequence. The Guardian is targeting specific individuals throughout Earth's population, Dr. John reported with growing alarm. It's triggering genetic expressions that have lain dormant in our DNA for millennia. Whatever the Guardians engineered us to become, it's happening now. As the Empress's shuttle docked with the Worldbreaker, strange phenomena began manifesting across Earth. In research facilities, universities, and even ordinary homes, individuals reported sudden insights into advanced physics, engineering breakthroughs, and mathematical solutions that had eluded humanity's greatest minds. Dr. Kapoor, monitoring these reports from his facility in Bangalore, recognized the pattern immediately. It's distributed cognition, he explained to the Emergency Council. The Guardian isn't just activating isolated genetic potentials, it's creating a network. People with complementary activated genes are instinctively collaborating, solving problems collectively that no individual could address. On military channels, similar reports emerged from defense installations. Tactical officers reported enhanced spatial awareness. Engineers suddenly understood how to modify existing technology in ways previously thought impossible. Even civilian volunteers displayed unprecedented coordination, as if guided by some collective intuition. It's not mind control, Dr. John clarified when questioned. The Guardian describes it as unlocking evolutionary potential. These capabilities were always in our DNA, just dormant until triggered by specific conditions. Aboard the Thunderchild, Admiral Rice felt it too, a strange clarity of thought, patterns becoming visible where before there had been only chaos. Looking at the tactical display, she suddenly saw the Imperial fleet's formation, not as ships, but as an equation waiting to be solved. New targeting solutions, she ordered, her fingers tracing patterns that tactical officers somehow immediately understood. They've distributed their command nodes across the fleet to prevent decapitation strikes, but there's a resonance pattern in their shield harmonics. Lieutenant Okonkwo nodded, comprehending instantly what would have taken hours of analysis before, synchronizing our weapon frequencies to exploit the pattern. The Worldbreaker's massive silhouette dominated the view screens as it began its approach toward Earth. Surrounding it, the Imperial fleet reorganized into a protective formation unlike any documented in their tactical archives, an innovation indicating the Empress's direct command. She's adapting, Rise realized, breaking from their standard doctrine. She must be experiencing something similar to what we are, some awakening of her own ancient potential. In the Antarctic facility, the Guardian artifact's pulsing had reached a feverish intensity. Dr. Zhang and her team worked frantically to interpret the data flooding their systems. It's not just providing information anymore, Zhang reported. It's transforming, reconfiguring its molecular structure. The ancient device, once roughly cylindrical, began flowing like liquid metal, reshaping itself into a complex geometric form that somehow strained the eyes to look at directly. The final activation sequence has begun, she continued, reading from the translation interface. It says, "The children of the Guardians will now face the children of the Eternal. As it was foreseen, so it must be." On the Worldbreaker's command deck, the Empress stood before a similar artifact, a dark mirror to the Guardian, its surface absorbing light rather than emitting it. Her mnemonic council gathered around, their expressions revealing uncharacteristic concern. The Eternal Chamber has never activated autonomously before, Counselor Vexid observed nervously. Not in 12,000 years. Because it has never encountered its counterpart, the Empress replied, her luminescent veins pulsing with ancient power. The Guardians and the Eternal were never truly separate species. They were evolutionary branches of the same origin race, divided by philosophical differences that became biological over millions of years. She placed her six-fingered hand on the dark artifact, and it responded to her touch, patterns of darkness flowing across its surface. We chose perfect order through controlled evolution. They chose chaotic potential through genetic diversity. This confrontation was inevitable from the moment both paths were chosen. As the World Breaker's primary weapon began charging, creating distortions in the fabric of space-time visible to even conventional sensors, Admiral Rice made her decision. Humanity couldn't match the Empire's firepower directly, but they didn't need to. All vessels, implement gravity lens protocol, she ordered. Synchronized firing on my mark. Earth's defensive fleet, previously scattered in seemingly random patterns, suddenly realigned. Each vessel activated its experimental drive system, not for propulsion but as a weapon, creating overlapping fields of gravitational distortion focused precisely on the Worldbreaker. On the Imperial flagship, alarms blared as sensors detected the rapidly forming gravitational lens. The Empress felt the danger through her connection to the Eternal Chamber, but her response came a crucial moment too late. The treaty negotiations continued deep into Earth's night, illuminated by the ethereal glow of the Empress's bioluminescent veins and the soft blue radiance emanating from the Guardian technology that Dr. Zhang had brought from Antarctica. Two ancient legacies, facing each other across a conference table designed by humans. There's something you need to understand about humanity, Admiral Rice said, addressing a point of contention that had stalled discussions for hours. The genetic modifications the Guardians made to our ancestors weren't comprehensive blueprints. They were possibilities, potential paths of development. The Empress studied her with ancient eyes. Yet you followed precisely the path that would oppose us. No, Dr. Kapoor interjected, spreading data across the holographic display between them. Look at human history. We explored thousands of possible paths simultaneously. Some human societies developed technologies of destruction. Others created art that served no survival purpose. Some pursued harmony with their environment, while others sought to dominate it. We weren't following programming. We were exploring every possible configuration of society and technology simultaneously. Inefficient, noted Counselor Vexid dismissively. Adaptable, countered Dr. Zhang. The Guardian didn't create us as weapons. It created us as explorers. Every configuration had to be tested to find what worked. The Empress touched a six-fingered hand to the treaty document. And you believe this makes you worthy of independence. Your existence is artificial, the result of manipulation by our ancient enemy. A new voice joined the conversation as President Chen of the United Earth Government entered the chamber. Unlike the military and scientific personnel, she carried no weapons or devices, only a small wooden box of evident age and craftsmanship. With respect, Eternal Empress, she said, what species isn't shaped by those who came before? You yourself have altered your people's genetic destiny for millennia. She placed the box on the table. Before we conclude these negotiations, there's something you should see. Inside the box lay a fragment of stone tablet, clearly ancient, covered with markings that matched neither human writing nor imperial script, but somehow incorporated elements of both. This was discovered in a cave in Africa 200 years ago, President Chen explained. Carbon dated to approximately 50,000 years before present. We could never translate it, until now. Dr. Zhang's instruments scanned the tablet, correlating it with the Guardian's database. The translation appeared on the central display. To those who find this message, we are neither the first nor the last. The cycle of guidance and discovery spans billions of years. The Eternal and the Guardian were themselves shaped by those who came before, as were their shapers, extending backward to the dawn of thought in this galaxy. There is no pure beginning, only continuation. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the delegates. The Empress's luminescence flickered in what might have been surprise or disturbance. "The artifact we discovered suggests something remarkable," Dr. Kapoor said softly. "The Guardians and the Eternals weren't just evolutionary branches of the same species. They were themselves the result of genetic engineering by an even older civilization. And that civilization was likely shaped by another before it. A cycle without beginning," the Empress whispered, the concept clearly unsettling to her ancient worldview, which had placed her lineage at the apex of evolution. "Which makes this conflict not a culmination, but merely one turn of a greater wheel," Rice suggested. "Perhaps the true test isn't which evolutionary path is superior, but whether we can recognize the pattern and choose something different." The Empress rose from her seat, towering over the human delegation. For a tense moment, her guards shifted nervously. Then, unexpectedly, she removed an ornate medallion from around her neck, a symbol of imperial authority never before shown to non-citizens. "In 10,000 years, I have collected wisdom from countless sources," she said. "Yet I never considered that my own existence might be as directed as yours. It seems we have both been playing parts in a drama written long before either of our kinds existed." She placed the medallion on the treaty document. "The terms are acceptable, not because humanity has proven its strength, but because you have proven that strength need not be the only measure of worth. The cycle of conquest and resistance has perpetuated for too long." As dawn broke over the horizon, visible through the chamber's eastern windows, the treaty was formally ratified. Its provisions went far beyond non-aggression, establishing frameworks for cultural and technological exchange, mutual defense agreements, and the gradual reformation of the empire into a more collaborative interstellar community. The true significance, however, lay not in the specific terms, but in what they represented. For perhaps the first time in the galaxy's long history, ancient enemies had chosen cooperation over the endless cycle of conflict their creators had designed them to perpetuate. "We are neither the Guardians' children nor the Eternals' rivals," President Chen declared in the formal closing statement. "We are the authors of our own destiny, writing a new chapter in a story far older and longer than we ever imagined."